Welcome to Evolve to Succeed, the podcast that brings together entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders and experts to talk about their journeys and explore the link between personal and business success. I'm your host, Warren Munson, founder of Evolve, a coaching, training and development company focused on enabling business and personal success and creating a community of like-minded individuals. Whether that be through our peer groups, one-to-one coaching, our training and development programs for you and your teams, or through our content and events, our mission is to get the best out of each individual and inspire them to be better both in life and in business. If you want to learn more about Evolve, including our beautiful co-working space in Ashley Cross in Poole, then please go to evolvemembers.com, where you'll find great content, insights, details of all of our services, and also information on our forthcoming events. For now though, let's get on with the show. My guest today is Gordon Fong, CEO and co-founder of Kimcell. Kimcell contains three businesses within it, Datacenta Hosting, eMango and XNet, and we'll see and hear how all of these come together and work together during the course of our conversation with Gordon. Gordon is deeply passionate about making connections both in the technical sense and the personal one. His goal is to enhance and champion business in Dorset, and part of this has been Kimcell's expansion at the Dorset Innovation Park. As well as Gordon's love of community and doing business for a greater good, other topics covered in our conversation range from how much business and the process of starting a business has changed over the past 20 years, Gordon's ultimate aspirations for Dorset, the current and future state of AI, work-life balance, and the importance of finding your tribe. I really enjoyed this conversation and I hope you will too. Welcome, Gordon, to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you. It's a surprise to be invited here.
Oh, no, I think there's a lot that I want to talk to you about, Gordon. I think I'm going to obviously touch on software, tech, all of those kind of things and things you do within your business. But one of the reasons I want you on the podcast is I think you're a great believer in community. So I've got some questioning and some discussion I want to have with you about the power of community.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it now. Yeah.
So we'll get on to that. But first, I suppose we should put some context here for our listeners about you, about the business you co-own, which you're the Chief Operating Officer of, which is Kimcell. So very briefly, do you want to tell our listeners what Kimcell does and is?
That's a difficult question, and I actually did a video to explain everything that I do, so hopefully people can find that and have a bit of a play. But I guess in summary, Kimcell it's not like it's a branded house. I guess it's a house of brands, of which we've got three.
Okay.
eMango, that we started in year 2000 as a web development company, one of the earliest ones and probably one of three still in existence in Bournemouth.
Wow.
We have Datacenta Hosting, which is a managed service provider, and we've got our own data center facility over at the Dorset Innovation Park. So we work with local government, national government and local businesses as well. We have XNet, which provides consultancy into the areas of national security and law enforcement. So it's quite a mixed bag of things, but it's quite good to have a diversified
that is
business
quite
model.
A diversified mix, as you say. But I suppose the first question that then comes out is, how do you know which hat you're wearing at any given time? And, how do you apply yourself to those different businesses?
It is. It's a difficult thing, but they're all quite distinct. And you kind of, when you go into different network of businesses in that sector, it's quite easy to distinguish. But as far as our business ambitions goes, actually, the next 5-7 years, we have an ambition to bring everything together as more of a consolidated offering.
Okay.
So actually, it feels like we're going to go through a startup phase after 23 years of business. So that's exciting in its own way, because actually I think that's what we need to do, to have a focus in a kind of exit strategy as well.
Okay, so that's more than just a rebranding exercise. That is bringing the strategies of all the businesses together.
Yeah, 3 payrolls, 3 sets of accounts, all those kind of things, as you will well know yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. And how did you get into that business? What were you doing before? What brought you down to Dorset?
I moved down to Bournemouth from Newcastle. I was working for a ISDN company in Newcastle, and I moved down to work for a company called Foresight, who were their competitors. So I moved all the way down from Newcastle to Bournemouth to work for the competitor, and in a way, having looked back since in terms of personal life and business life.
Brilliant. And foresight, I mean,
Yeah.
we should probably touch on that. I mean, that what seems to be, and I remember at the time, I was in the business community, I was working within a firm of accountants, and that was the business locally. It was a tech business. This was mid-90s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was, I suppose, the place to be. But it then got sold to Whamnet, was that right?
Yeah.
So it got sold to a big US corporation, and everybody, it's sort of disbanded. But one of the things that intrigues me about that business is that out of that business has come so many other startups, tech businesses, even marketing businesses that have got on to be successful. And I can't think of another example like that. Why do you think that was?
The kind of energy in the place and the average age was quite, there was a good community of friends and that would work hard and play hard as well. And they were quite young in a kind of software startup business as well. So, everything kind of came together. Everybody had their own roles, but we worked hard to build it nationally, internationally, and so on. But also the senior business management team, they were really, really good at guiding us through. So they were level heads at the top and just kind of young guns below, just doing their thing. And one of the things I still talk to our friends from Foresight days. We still meet and have reunions every five years or so, and it's fantastic. And there's always this question, what would have happened if we stayed together on all that entrepreneurial spirit was used to maybe spin off different brands, spin off different products and services, but we kept everybody together. I don't know, it's always a question that's kind of not bugged me because life moves on, but it makes us reflect back on what such a great time it was. But it's also a different time because when I started in business in year 2000, the kind of conditions and the tools are so different to now. Youngsters can spin up a business age 14, 16 or whatever, and they can be trading the next day. Back then, if you didn't have business cards, a telephone number, etc., stationery, you couldn't even start, could you?
Yeah, but I suppose no, you couldn't. And that is a good reflection. It's even in the last 23 years how the world has changed and how it's so much easier to start a business now and to be entrepreneurial now than it was back then.
Yeah, I used to go through this phase and looking at the youngsters coming through and think, oh wow, they're doing so great. But we can't compare ourselves because it's a different time, different tools, different mindset. So, and I just love the way that 16-year-olds or 18-year-olds in our kind of business networking groups come up to me and tell me that they're starting businesses. And I just stand there astounded thinking, I would never be that brave, but they are, and fair play.
And I suppose, it's got me thinking now. It's a good observation, isn't it? Because I think perhaps in your day, my day, probably a similar age, Gordon, you did go off and get experience, did you? You went out into the world, you probably had a job, possibly worked for a corporate or, and maybe in your late 20s thought, I can do something for myself here. I've learned some stuff, I'll go and do it. And the barriers were there. But now, it's great, isn't it? Youngsters are coming out of school, out of university, and they've got great ideas and they've got a passion and a belief and off they go.
Yeah, they've got very little to risk, everything to gain. They've got the tools, they can try it as a side hustle with all the tools, internet tools they've got, and then if it works, great. If it doesn't, they'll just move on to the next one. Whilst we would kind of go, it's failure and kind of mope over it. But the youngsters just fly through. Yeah,
it's good, isn't it? And if we talk about eMango, because, as you said, that was business founded in 2000, one of the first early internet businesses. And you say, one of three that you can think of locally that were formed then and still going. What's been the success and given that business its longevity?
I guess we're a lot smaller than what we were before. But I wanted to retain that capability as opposed to closing off, because actually it's going to come into its own when we consolidate all of these kind of services later on. But I think what we did do early on was to niche down on a particular sector into membership organisations. So say the British Plastics Federation or the Association of X, Y and Z. So instead of just building a website, which is more of a brochure, it would be a membership management system that people can renew their subscriptions, book events, access member-only data and information. So that was our focus. And the kind of recurring revenues from those clients saw us through 2 recessions and 1 pandemic.
Yeah.
And that should be a business chant for all those businesses that survived.
Yeah, no, definitely. And was niching down, because a lot of people talk about niching down,
Yeah.
and that is a route to longevity, success, and all of that. And that was a purposeful strategy that you adopted all those years ago, was it?
Yes, we knew we couldn't compete on very creative design websites. We just didn't have those skills, and we wouldn't have enough customers to hire somebody full time. So we just focused on the business process and aspects and the kind of back office systems that people needed. So they could have the nice front end websites, but actually to run the business and to bring the money in and to manage their clients, they needed something a lot more solid than just a WordPress website.
Yeah, so I suppose that came back to leaning on yours and others within the businesses, your tech and IT and software skills. Okay. And should touch on, you've got many other roles, and I suppose this might lead us into this kind of conversation around community in part, and perhaps we'll come back to business later. You've been and are sort of non-exec at BH Support, which provides advice to local businesses, Frankenfest, which is a community interest company based around Southbourne and your community there. What draws you into some of these more voluntary roles, Gordon?
In terms of my involvement within the local community, that the crux of that is a big question, and I'm going to answer it this way. I'm not a public speaker, but back in 2019, I did a talk as part of a little network group I'm part of, You're the Media.
Yeah.
And the title of the talk was The Worst Business Entrepreneur Presentation Ever. So if you search that's got my name all over it. And one of the slides, which was the most simplest, but actually the most hardest to go through, was a white slide with a little greenhouse from Monopoly.
Okay.
And what I talked about then was about my parents coming to the UK in 1960s, and I grew up as a teenager in the 80s. And for a lot of people, the 80s were fun times, music, fashion, ABBA, etc., etc. But for me, there was another aspect in the sense that there was a lot of far-right anti-immigration rhetoric, and being told that this place isn't your home and to go back to where you come from had a long-lasting impact on me throughout my life, which it's only been recently that I've been able to kind of face and overcome. So for the first 15 years in business, I wouldn't step out and represent, because actually I would try and hide away or not be seen, because that was a survival tactic for me in the 1980s. But I've come to learn, actually my face, me, this is my biggest asset that I can ever have. And I'll probably use it to good effect in a minute. But, when I moved down to Bournemouth, more specifically Southbourne, I actually found out what home really meant.
Okay.
And that's a big answer, in the sense that your home isn't just the bricks and mortar that you sleep overnight. It's somewhere where you feel safe, welcome, engaged, and that makes you want to put more back in. And that's what I do, and that's why I do what I do for the likes of Southbourne.
Wow, brilliant. And do you think one of those, and thank you for sharing that with us, do you think one of those reasons about trying not to fit in and wanting to be in the background is what drove you perhaps to software, technology, or was it just your natural skills and abilities?
Yeah, I think I've been more of an introvert techie. So when I was working up in the northeast and also in Foresight, I was support person, software QA person. So I was very much in the background. And when I first started or co-founded eMango, I was the person building the infrastructure, the servers, the software, the scripts to run everything. But now my role and my business partner's roles kind of changed, in the sense that he's just pushed me out in the front, say you represent the business, and I get my hands dirty again on hardware and services.
Yeah, but you seem to love every time you see, and if people go onto your LinkedIn and see Gordon's kind of profile, there's always a big smile on your face. You always seem to enjoy yourself. You always seem to be engaged in whatever you're doing. That does seem a long way from that person that didn't feel they belonged. That must have been a hell of a journey for you.
It was transformational once I found out and I actually faced that question. Yeah. Once I found the answer, in the sense that that was what was holding me back, I've really started to enjoy being out there, meeting new people, and being in the company of entrepreneurs and being part of the community. It's been absolutely transformational in that.
And clearly it's had that profound effect for you, Gordon. So I suppose I often say, can you give us some hints and tips? But if there's somebody listening to this podcast that perhaps was in that position you're in and perhaps doesn't feel like they quite fit. Any hints and tips on what they can do to go through the journey that you've been on?
I think it's to find your tribe in a way. The media community has really helped my confidence, my skills, my capability, my own personal, whether it's business or personal development. And I think when I first started, I was the person at the back, and I would just turn up and just be quiet and just listen. But I would turn up.
Yeah.
And by turning up consistently, the organisers can see that and see that you're very, very supportive, and they'll be grateful for that. Over time, you make more contacts, you have more conversations, become a lot more confident, and then in the end, Mark Masters, who kind of heads our community, just would get me on stage for a little bit, just a 5-minute share what I've been doing, and then in the end, it ended up in 2019. It was supposed to be a 20-minute talk, but it ended up as 45 minutes. And there was about 100 people there, and it was just friends in business. So it wasn't like to a blank, 1,000.
You felt like you found your tribe, and you're standing in front of them speaking.
And it was easy then to just to share everything. And
and that then gave you the confidence to be more of yourself in everyday life in business.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where you give and not expect anything back. Just support other people. Turn up to their events and just turn up and support them, because if nobody else turned up, then at least you would be the person that turned up for them, because then come the time when you need an ask back, it becomes easier.
Support, definitely. And do you think we, SME business owners generally do enough to support their communities?
What I would say is we should be a part of the community, not apart from the community. We've got our data centre facility in the Dorset Innovation Park in Wool. It's all fenced off, it's a secure area, and it would be easy to drive in there, bring your sandwiches or buy them from the sandwich van that comes around, and then leave at the end of the day. But for our business lunches, we try and use the deli as much as we can. When I go to the local spa, the bakers or the deli, I'll wear my lanyard to show, actually, I work in the park, but I'm coming through to spend my money here locally. And come the day where if we can build a cafe, or maybe even have a little barber's chair, that actually I'd love to have a barber's chair there so I don't have to faff on the weekend. The first thing to do would be to ask the local community, do you want to run this for us? And then when we have job postings, I share it to the local Facebook groups and say, we would love local people to apply for this, because actually it would be beneficial all around. So I think we should absolutely be a part of the community and put as much in.
Yeah, I love that. Be part of your community. Do not be apart from your community. I love that. It's a great mantra. And it's what I believe in, with Inspire and now Evolve and everything else. I think, I always had it in my head, and my thing was actually we've got to give back and we've got to add value to the community, and not just the business community, but the community in which we operate.
And you did so with your massive conference that you used to hold at the Big.
Yeah, we did. And that was a kind of that was a no cost for anybody attending, and we kind of we had 250 business owners, leaders, but it was a bit about us saying it was great for our brand and all of that, but it was about saying that I really believe in the local business community. Yep. Now let's get us all together and let's share and put, like-minded people with similar interests in the room, and great things can happen. And some great things did happen as a result of those conferences. Yeah, so thank you for referencing those. But it was always about very early on. Back in 2005-06, we used to talk about. We were one of those early businesses that gave everybody at least one day, if not more, if they wanted it, to go and do something in their local community. And I think that's important for business owners, isn't it? And we had people that used to go, they'd spend a day at home baking cakes because it was the village fair on the Saturday and they could sell them on the store, and they couldn't do that if they didn't. It wasn't all about just find a local charity and go and work in the community shop. It was about do what's important to you and your community. You also seem, obviously, grew up in the north of England, came down here mid-90s. maybe you've referenced it with that reference to Southbourne and finding your home, but you're also very passionate about Dorset's potential, aren't you, and what we could achieve here. I mean, what would be your aspirations for the county, and where would you like to see the county sit?
When we talk about Dorset, probably a lot of your listeners won't know, but it's governed by two quite different councils. BCP Council covers Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, and Dorset Council for everything west of Poole. And they're all quite different beasts, and we won't have enough time to cover those two.
Yes.
But we had our base in Bournemouth, and then we moved to the Innovation Park in 2019, 2020. And I didn't realise how stifling it was to be in the same building for 20 years.
Yeah.
Even with the lick of paint and the move of desk, as soon as we moved to the Innovation Park, life absolutely changed for us and for our staff. And I think it was lucky timing as well, because the military started to turn up talking about building their own innovation space, co-working space called the Defence Battle Lab. Now, over time, we let them use the Army use our office for meetings, and we would just help everything in any way that we could do. But then over time, they trusted us. Then they give us more work to do to kit out the workspace and the office spaces with internet cabling, etc., etc. And now we're even furnishing 5G onto their Lulworth ranges. So we are, a trusted supplier to them, and it's been transformational for us. But BCP area kind of does well, but from what I've seen and what I've heard, the likes of Weymouth and Dorchester and West Dorset doesn't do as well. And I'd just like to see prosperity, having this shared prosperity across the whole of the county, and part of that is about creating jobs, highly paid, well skilled jobs in that area. And I think with the MOD and the Army, creating this kind of innovation space, bringing academia, local businesses, the military together in trying to find new solutions, new providers for the military. I think that is absolutely new potential for Dorset businesses. Now, defence has been a part of Dorset in terms of Blandford, Bovington, Lulworth, etc., etc. But I think we can talk about Bournemouth Digital or Dorset Digital, and that has a history of being very web focused. But those skills, and if Dorset web businesses want to diversify and safeguard themselves for the future, it could be that skills could be used in a different way. And the new domain is data. Data is becoming the new thing, but also connect that with defence as well. So there's an absolute opportunity for the digital skills within BCP or Dorset to then transform into this new sector, this new opportunity, and for Dorset to be a centre of excellence in that. Brilliant. And that's why I try and introduce businesses to the Defence Battle Lab and try and connect businesses together, because I think we have some challenges facing coming up in terms of demographics of people, resources, etc., etc. And I'm gonna touch on that. I don't know how you're gonna think about what I'm gonna say, but I've been working on a talk that's and I'm going to give you the title.
Okay.
I'm not doing it to be provocative, but it will make you think, and it's an absolute real question that we all need to answer. And the title is, who is going to clean your bum when you are too old and unable to? And that's an absolute real question in terms of adult social care, health care, and so on.
Yeah.
Because there's a potential demographic catastrophe coming, in the sense that, with the baby boomer generation, there was a, stable triangle. Pensions at the top, people below working, supporting the tip of the triangle. Yeah. And Dorset LEP, the local enterprise partnership, they forecasted by 2040 the dependency ratio will be 1 in the terms of, the number of people of pension age will equal the number of people of working age.
And that would replicate itself for our listeners that aren't Dorset based all around the country, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But then if we don't have, and people are having fewer children later on in life, that square will then become an unstable upside down triangle unless we have more people coming to the region, freedom of movement or whatever that is now. Unless we bolster that underneath, it's going to be a massive, massive problem. Yeah. And there are things that we can't influence, as in housing strategy, building, etc., etc. But what I can do is try and create jobs, be part of a thriving economy, so that people can move to the area. Yeah. They can pay the taxes, and bolster the local economy. Because if we think our high streets are desolate now, what's going to happen when there's less people working? Yeah. So, like I said, that's why I try and voice these concerns, try and be part of creating jobs within the local area, because that's the things that I can try and influence, but I can't change the things on the top.
You can try and influence policy, but you can bang your head against a brick wall forever. Yeah. But it comes down to what can we all do? I suppose it comes down to community again, but what can we do in our businesses that makes wherever our businesses within the UK or the world a better place. Yeah. And it's about taking those steps that we can. And actually, I think you're quite different and unique as a business owner, because I don't think many of us reflect on those bigger questions. And I think I admire you for trying to think about the bigger questions. But when you do that, you then change your strategy to fit the problems that are coming, don't you?
So that's why when we have new jobs coming at the park, I will reach out to local Facebook groups. Yeah. We'll try and reach out to Weymouth and Dorchester, because I've seen statistics in terms of social deprivation across there, economic deprivation, and we need better jobs across there, because then Dorset as a whole can be great, as opposed to just certain pockets towards the east.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I suppose who's going to wipe your bum when you're old isn't going to be AI, is it? But I'm really intrigued to see your opinion on, I suppose you've probably been thinking about AI might have been part of your world, doing what you do for a number of years, or seeing it coming. But us in the mass population, really, ChatGPT has opened our eyes to this new technology that is already, it's not coming, it's here, and it's been here for a while when you stop and think about it. What's your view about the explosion of AI? And is it for the good? Does it raise any potential threats? Where do you sit in that world?
I think it's fascinating, and I think the amount of talk over a short space of time is incredible for this technology. Yeah. And and we know that actually even better versions are just around the corner. So the likes of AI, for us as a technical services company, is great in the sense that it helps us find the answers a lot quicker. It can help us build software tools quicker, which we have done. Although the kind of output from those from using AI and ChatGPT in writing the software tools is we've always had to debug them and fix them before they go into our live production. So that kind of raises the question for me, are we losing the profession from professional?
Yeah.
Are we losing those deep-rooted fundamental skills and knowledge because we can just crank it out? And does that lead us to a world where an 80-20 world, in the sense that we crank it out, it's good enough, let's just move on, whereby true professionals, artisans, craftspeople, they'll take that extra from the 80 to 100%, where it'll be absolutely unique, spot on, and suited for you.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's that kind of, do we end up in a world where everything is vanilla? Is everything the same? Because
or good enough. It's just good enough.
Good enough. But but that kind of, everybody's used AI to do it. They've all come up with similar results. Everything, looks the same, and therefore we do use the word vanilla because the colour out of life dissipates. But, on the other side of things, we talk about there's a labour shortage. Does it mean that actually, those with skills, professional skills, can spend more time doing
it's an important tool
where they add
for sure.
value?
Yeah, it's an important tool for sure, but I think we need those mastery of the skills to use it and to fix and patch up where it doesn't deliver. Yeah.
But that's another big question, isn't it? Because you and I, learnt our skills in our professions because we did everything from the bottom up. If AI is going to do the 80% of the job, we're not going to have masters in 10, 15, 20 years' time, are we? Because you only become a master because you spend so many hours doing the basics.
And it may be that life changes within the next 5, 10, 15 years. And our opinions now are just
and I was just about to say, or am I just talking as a 40-year-old man and, a man in his 40s and with a very archaic view of life? I don't know. Do you have any fears or threats about AI?
Even within websites and technology, there is dark UI, or where software is done in a psychological way to drive you to do things that you may not want to do. I guess the case in point is, before, when you were booking tickets, they would make the green button. You say yes, add insurance or whatever on your plane tickets. When normally 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, you don't want to. But the fact that it's green, it's just drawing you to it. So maybe the use of AI like this, people can use it to kind of be more controlling. Or there is always a darker side to technology, unfortunately.
I suppose that's been the way of the world. And in terms of the journey that you've been on, the forming of the business, the being involved in lots of things around business, what effect has that had on you as an individual and in your personal and family life?
I guess there are times in the early days, well, actually even now, where the business will struggle with cash flow. There's staff issues, customer issues, supplier issues, and I think we're all members of the hashtag 3am club, where we are lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell we're going to do tomorrow when it comes to money and everything else. But by being resilient enough and lasting out 20 years, 23 years, I'm in a position where it's less an issue. Financially, I'm doing okay. I'm enjoying life in terms of work-life balance and so on. But it took a long time to get to that stage. And there's different phases of success in business. And normally that's your last question, but the first phase of success is to get through those first 2 years, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. When you start, it's just like, might have a couple of customers, might have this, got an idea, got a passion, but how do we make it work? How do we get that ball rolling? How do we get momentum, isn't it? Yeah,
indeed. And then the second phase of success is having a better work-life balance, where actually you have time to put back in, or you have time for yourself, or a bit of both. And that's where the phase I am currently at. And if we hit our growth strategy, I can be more autonomous in what I choose to do. And that's maybe the last phase of success. But being able to put back in, especially, you've heard about my initial journey, that's what drives me, being that positive contributor to people's lives, whether it's in the community or whether it's from members of staff coming through the business and onwards. There was a early stage in business where every time somebody left, it was like the end of the world for me. And in one short space of time, we had 3 people leave to one of the largest agencies, web agencies in Bournemouth. And that, the younger me just thought, that's awful. How dare they? I hate them for it. But now I look back and think, well, actually, I must have done something well for them to take them on. And if that led them to go on to bigger and better things, then great. That's my role in life. That's my role in life.
And I think that's about, and it's a big word, isn't it? But that sort of thing. And I suppose it comes back to, if you go back to those that, drove and owned and built Foresight, what you just talked about there is when you develop an individual, you bring them on, they go on to greater things. That's probably what you describe as legacy, isn't it? That is leaving something behind.
Yeah, some people will use P&L for profit and loss.
Yeah.
But I've kind of changed that to purpose and legacy.
Yeah.
What you do for now and what you leave behind for everybody else.
And that must be a big part of your, I think you've said it, is a big part of your driver is that legacy piece, isn't it? What's the world going to reflect on when Gordon isn't here?
Yeah. Now, me and my wife, we don't have children, but we have plenty of godchildren and nephews and nieces. But there's still the rest of society and our friends and neighbours that I do want to try and create something or leave something in terms of business and leaving that for the staff or some other shape or form.
Brilliant. And what do you do away from the kind of work life to perhaps get that balance, make sure you are able to be resilient?
If anybody follows my Instagram account, they'll see it's a good, healthy mixture of work and personal life. I'm a bit of a foodie. I like my food and drink. Sometimes a bit too much, but I like visiting and supporting local businesses as well.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't want to use social media because I don't want to watch or see people's breakfasts." But I do, because I want to try different places all the time. So I do like travelling as well, short holidays abroad. But yeah, food and drink and all the events on our high street, I just love it.
Brilliant, fantastic. And what's the best piece of advice that you think you've ever received? And what's the one thing maybe you've heard in a presentation that's really, hit home to you?
Maybe it's not a piece of advice, but a kind of conversation I had with my business partner, Tim Harris. Because talking back about the 3 a.m. club, I would worry about, we haven't got enough money to pay suppliers, VAT, POA, etc., etc. And if somebody said, Gordon, February is the worst month for business owner deaths, suicides, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And my business partner would pick up on this and say, well, what's wrong, Gordon? And I tell him, and he would say, what's the worst that can happen? And I would just repeat, I can't pay the staff, I can't do this, and all hell breaks loose. And he would just say, what's the worst that can happen? But we've seen it in the news and in the papers or whatever. Business suicide is a real thing.
It is.
And that literally is the worst thing that can happen. So once I don't want that to happen. So everything else it is an issue, it can be a problem, but it's not as bad as that.
It's going to have consequences, but it's not that, is it? And I think that piece is that, and it's got, in my view, it's great that us as business owners can have these conversations now about being resilient, the 3 a.m. club, mental health, and all of that awareness, because probably when we both started our businesses in the early 2000s, that would have been a no-no, that would have been a sign of weakness.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so great that those conversations can now take place.
But also, the groups that you create and having business people around the same table is, for me, that's my kind of mental health well-being space, being in the company of other entrepreneurs, because sometimes you look at somebody else and think, wow, they're doing great, they're smashing it. But then when you have a honest conversation, you just think, they've just got 4 times my problems.
And it does put things in perspective, and you help each other, and that's it. And I think it's really interesting, at the events that we run, the peer groups that we run, some of the, the development programs that we do for businesses where we just get their leadership or management team together as a cohort. We talk about, them sharing their good, their bad, and their mad about what's going on. But we also always say, don't just do it from a business perspective. Yeah. Do it from a personal perspective as well, because you can't have success, can you? You can't be in balance in life if one side of your life is great and you're not giving the time and attention to the other part. Yeah. And what's great is sometimes when you see that happening, you might start a session around strategic growth, but you let the conversation go for 15, 20 minutes around somebody that has got a personal challenge. And to see this, I'm smiling now, the listeners can't see it, but one of the things that brings me joy is you see that actually people are sharing that and they're supporting each other. And it is, like you say, with, the Mark Masters community that you're a big part of, is when you've got those people around you, it can make life so much better, can't it? It's so important these days. It's absolutely so important. I would recommend everyone to find their tribe, wherever that may be. Find your tribe is definitely, find your tribe, be part and not a part of your community. They're the two things that have definitely resonated with me. And I normally, as you say, end with a question about success. And I think we've covered that with you, Gordon, in the course of the conversation. So I won't repeat myself. So I'm going to end, listeners, with a different question.
Oh no. I haven't prepared for this one.
So what advice would you give to your younger self? If you could go back to the 20-year-old Gordon, what advice would you give him?
I would say step forward. Like I said, for 15 years I didn't step forward, and we shouldn't live with regrets, but the business could have been a lot different if I put that effort in right up front, as opposed to over the last 7 years or so. So I think absolutely step forward and recognise the biggest asset, the best asset is you.
Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. If people want to learn more about you, see your pictures on Instagram, get in contact via LinkedIn, how can they actually, and find out about the businesses, what can they do to connect with you?
I guess search for Gordon Fong Bournemouth.
Yeah.
You'll get all my social links, my website, but catch me up on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest.
Brilliant. Gordon, I've loved our conversation. I knew when I welcomed you to this podcast 40 minutes or so ago, it was going to be a wide and varied conversation. It's certainly been that. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for being a great guest on the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
And thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, Warren.
Thank you for listening to the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My hope with every episode is that you've learned something new or heard something that challenged your way of thinking and further motivated you on your path towards becoming a more knowledgeable, informed and inspired individual and business leader. If you enjoyed this episode, then please help us by rating, reviewing and subscribing. We really value your feedback and would love to have you along for future episodes. And please don't forget to learn more about Evolve by going to evolvemembers.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.